This video is a quick review of Form 8863 that you'll need to complete the Chapter 7 exam. The 8863 is the form used to report the American Opportunity and Lifetime Learning credits. First, you'll notice the caution here on the left. It cautions users to complete page 2 before completing parts 1 and 2. So we are going to scroll all the way over to part 3 on page 2 before attempting anything in part 1 and 2. Part 3 really just is the section where you're going to enter the student and the educational institution information. So your student name and ID, the educational institution, you can list up to 2 here. Whether or not the student received a Form 1098-T, all students get these to report how much tuition the student paid to the institution. So you're just going to click yes or no if it was received and whether box 7 was checked on the form. You have to enter the institution's employer ID number and answer a series of questions. And these questions are going to determine whether you're eligible for the AOTC or the Lifetime Learning Credit. Remember, you can take one credit or the other, but not both for the same student. So 23 starts and asks if the Hope Scholarship Credit or the AOTC is what it's called, has been claimed for this student for any 4 tax years before 2021. So remember, the AOTC can only be taken for the first 4 years of the student's education. So if you answer yes, you can only take the Lifetime Learning Credit. So it directs you down to the bottom to line 31. If you say no, then you can go on to line 24. Was the student enrolled at least half-time? So remember, for the AOTC, a student has to be enrolled at least half-time, but for the Lifetime Learning Credit, they do not. So if no, then once again, it's directing you to line 31. And if yes, then you can keep going. Did the student complete the first 4 years of post-secondary education before 2021? And if yes, you have to stop. You can't take the AOTC. You have to go to line 31. If no, you can go on to 26. Was the student convicted of a felony or possession or distribution of controlled substance? If the student's been convicted for these reasons, they're not eligible for the AOTC, but they can take the Lifetime Learning Credit. Okay, so if the answer is no, then you are directed to complete lines 27 through 30. That's for the American Opportunity Tax Credit. Students who are eligible for this credit need to enter their adjusted qualified education expenses on line 27. And those expenses are tuition and fees, course-related books, and course-related supplies. So the total is entered on 27, not to exceed $4,000. So the expenses are listed here. You subtract $2,000 and you apply 25% to whatever amount you get on 28 after subtracting the $2,000. Then you take the result of 29 and add $2,000 to it, and on line 30 you'll enter your American Opportunity Tax Credit. So this credit is 100% of the first $2,000 in expenses paid, plus 25% of all the other expenses that you paid up to $4,000. So then you're directed back over to part 1, line 1. You're going to enter the figure from line 30 there. Now, if you are not eligible for the AOTC and you're directed to line 31, you're simply going to enter your adjusted qualified education expenses for the lifetime learning credit. And those are just slightly different from the AOTC. It is tuition and fees and course-related books and supplies only if they're required to be paid to the educational institution as a part of enrollment. In other words, if students can get their books online or get them from another source other than the college, then they cannot be included in the expenses on line 31. It has to be required as a part of enrollment. So if the student is eligible for the American Opportunity Tax Credit, you've already completed this portion and you've calculated the credit here on line 30. So it's saying to go over to Part 1, Line 1. So you're going to take the tax credit that you calculated and enter it here on line 1. Now the remaining lines 2 through 8 are going to help you determine how much of your credit is refunding and how much is not refunding. And you'll be directed on line 8 as to where to take your figure. Now for the lifetime learning credit, all you've entered here on line 31 is your eligible expenses, and you're asked to take those to Part 2, line 10. So for the lifetime learning credit, you would bring your expenses to line 10 and then proceed to calculate your credit. There are income limits, so lines 13 through 17 will help you determine whether or not your credit has been reduced because you've exceeded some sort of income limit. And then on line 19, you'll be directed as to where you need to take your final credit.